All right, so for the read aloud, we're going to be looking at this section of the text of our book, Everything Weather, and it is called The Sky is Falling. Remember, we want to take a look around. We don't want to jump too quick in. We want to preview and get a chance to know what we're going to learn here. So if we think about this idea of the sky, well, what have we learned so far? We've learned about the atmosphere. We know some stuff about the atmosphere. We've been studying the layers. We talked about clouds yesterday. That's definitely part of the sky. I know that there's water found in the sky. I know that there's gases. I know that it protects us. What else do I know about the sky? I know it rains and snows and sleets and the hails. All sorts of things. I know it can be very violent with winds, strong winds like tornadoes and hurricanes. And now I'm going to kind of start looking around here. So I've thought about what I know about the sky. I see here at the bold, I just see it says precipitation is a fancy word for the wet stuff that falls from the sky. And we've seen this word before, precipitation. It's been on our mind. So this idea of what rain, hail, snow, sleet, freezing rain, anything that falls from the sky and hits the ground or from the clouds. And here I see some pictures. I see titles here. I see rain, I see sleet, freezing rain, snow, hail. I move over, I see something that says taking Earth's temperature, and I see this thermometer. That's going to be interesting I wonder if they're going to talk about the inside of the Earth or maybe just temperature in general. Precipitation numbers. So we have kind of some information here that we'll get to know some different facts. Again, so what should we learn here? We should learn about, I would imagine, precipitation and what it is, and maybe some ideas about temperature. So let's get going. Here I see it says the sky can't actually fall, but moisture in the air can and does. Down here there's a weather alert. It says the average hailstone is the size of a 4-year-old's fingernail. All right. That's interesting. Is that going to be very important for us? Not necessarily. Remember, some of these fun little facts are good to know, but I don't know. But we have to kind of keep those and think, how does this fit to what I already know? Why is knowing that the hail is the size of a fingernail, why is that important? Does that help me understand more? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I just need to keep that in mind. So let's find out. Here, let me zoom in a little bit. All right, precipitation is a fancy word for the wet stuff that falls from the sky. Precipitation is rain, freezing rain, sleet, snow, or hail. It forms when water vapor in the air condenses into clouds, gets heavier, and drops to the ground. Precipitation can ruin a picnic, but life on Earth couldn't exist without it. I'm going to take a moment there. I mean, just water's super important, isn't it? It just is. And we've talked about that cycle before, and this idea that the water on Earth has been on Earth for millions, if not billions of years. And it's a really incredible thing to really start to think about. All right, so let's start learning about the different forms of water that can fall from the sky, this precipitation. Rain, formed when ice crystals in high, cold clouds get heavy and fall. Even in summer, falling ice crystals could remain frozen, but warm air near the ground melts them into raindrops. Okay, so starting to get this idea of that cycle, right? It's ice. It gets heavy enough to fall, which makes sense. And then on its way down, it melts. Cool. All right, let's find out what sleet is. Sleet develops when ice crystals fall toward the ground, partly melt, and then refreeze. This happens mainly in winter when air near the ground is below freezing temperatures. Okay, so sleet, this is almost like a compare and contrast. So both rain and sleet start off as ice. They both melt, but sleet refreezes. Oof, I bet that's pretty cold. All right, let's find out about freezing rain. Freezing rain falls during the winter when rain freezes immediately as it hits a surface. Freezing rain creates layers of ice on the roads and causes dangerous driving conditions. I bet. So this is Rain that when it falls, the ground is so cold that it just automatically freezes. I bet that must be very, very slippery. I've never participated in that, and that's something that we here in Colombia would not need to really worry about freezing rain or sleet. Although I do think maybe up in the Sierra Nevadas, you might get something like that occasionally. Um, let's find out about hail. We know a lot about hail. We've seen hail before. Hail formed inside thunderstorms when ice crystals covered in water pass through patches of freezing air in the tops of cumulonimbus clouds. The water on the ice crystals the water on the ice crystals freezes. The crystals become heavy and fall to the ground. Well, that was a lot. I'm kind of confused there. So hail forms inside thunderstorms. Okay. Ice crystals covered in water. So we have this ice crystal that has liquid water on the outside of it. Okay, so I have this ice crystal and it's going through water, and that water collects around it, and then that goes through freezing air. And freezes that to make it like this really hard thing. Okay. All right. And then that's super heavy, and then that probably doesn't get a chance to melt because it's so thick. So as opposed to rain, which was just this idea of an ice crystal and then it falls, this one, it's an ice crystal, falls, then gets water on it, which then freezes and then falls more. Okay, all right, that makes sense. Let's find out about snow. Cool tiger. Produced when ice crystals in clouds get heavy enough to fall. The air has to be cold enough all the way down for the crystals to stay frozen. So I'm guessing like this snow is more like it's the rain, but it's the air's colder, right? Because it's not hail, because it's not these really heavy things that are falling. If you've ever been in snow, they're very light. So that must be this idea of rain that just it falls all the way and does not melt. All right, cool. Taking Earth. So I'm gonna just here. Let me think about this. So I'm gonna shut the book so I can think about it without looking at it. So we have this idea of rain, which is the ice crystals that fall and then melt by the time they hit the ground. We have sleet, which is ice crystals that melt and then refreeze before they hit the ground. Then freezing rain, which is this idea of rain that melts, but then once it hits the ground, it freezes automatically. We have hail, which is this idea of I have this ice crystal, I'm falling through a thunderstorm, I get water wrapped around me that then freezes, and then I'm just this heavy pellet that doesn't have a chance to melt. And then I have snow, which is like that rain ice crystal before, but the air is not warm enough for me to melt, and so I kind of gently fall down to the ground. All right, cool. Let me check that. That looks like I got everything there. I remembered everything. All right, now taking Earth's temperature. I was very curious about this. What is this? The United States uses the English system or Fahrenheit measurement to describe temperature. Much of the rest of the world uses the metric system or Celsius measurement. The temperature is the same, but it's just expressed differently. For example, 75 degrees Fahrenheit in Seattle, Washington, USA is 23 degrees Celsius in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. How do you know? Just do the math. Here's how to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. Subtract 32, multiply by 5, and then divide by 9. Example, 55 degrees Fahrenheit equals how many degrees Celsius? 55 minus 32 times 5 divided by 9 equals 13. Now let's go to the other way, from Celsius to Fahrenheit, multiply by 9, divide by 5, and then add 32. So there you go. If you ever want to figure out how that happens or what things are, then there you have this mathematical formula. Is that going to help us in the big scheme of things? Not necessarily. It's important to know that different folks do different things. Different countries have different ideas. And that when we see the number 86, it's really important to know if that's Fahrenheit or Celsius, because that's a big, big difference. So really, that's the big takeaway. It's not necessarily the formula, but it's this idea that things are different all over the world, and that we need to know what the units are so that we have an idea All right, cool. Last but not least, precipitation numbers. 0 inches is the same amount of rain on record in the Antofagasta region in the Atacama Desert in Chile. It never rains there. Impressive. 8 inches or 20 centimeters is the diameter of the world's largest known hailstone. Oh, in South Dakota, 8. What, that's probably about that big or so. Good night, sweet prince. 12 inches or 30 and 5/10 centimeters is the most rainfall recorded in 1 hour in the United States. Whew, that's a lot of rain. 72 inches or 183 centimeters, that's a little shorter than me, of rainfall is the most ever recorded during a 24-hour period. Oh, during a tropical cyclone in the French island of Reunion. Man, that's a lot of water. Let's think about that, because that's over a large area. 118 days is the longest recorded amount of time without rain in the United States. That's a long time to not rain. I wonder what that is in Colombia, the longest, like around where we are. That would be an interesting thing to look up. And 1,042 inches or 27 meters is the most rainfall recorded in 1 year, and that was in India. 27 meters. That's a lot. It's a lot of water. All right, everybody. So if we take again, we zoom back out, we look at the whole thing. What did we learn about? This was probably the most important over here, and then this kind of added to our understanding of the world. But this is going to add to our understanding of weather. And hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be seeing you.